This podcast is sponsored by Pocket Hose.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn. Homeowners, listen up. Before Pocket Hose, garden hoses were heavy, bulky, hard to carry, and always kinking. Then Pocket Hose changed all that. It's the American invention that made watering lighter, easier, and smarter. And now, the world's #1 expanding hose has gone ballistic. Turn on the water and watch it grow from a compact hose into a full-length, powerful hose. Turn off the water and it shrinks right back down, making it easy to carry and easy to store. But now it's even better. With a tough ballistic-infused outer sleeve, a pocket pivot that helps reduce kinks at the spigot, thicker washers to help resist leaks, and UV protection to fight sun damage. And for a limited time, you'll get 2 free gifts, a 360-degree pocket pivot and a thumb drive nozzle. Just go to pockethose.com/podcast. That's pockethose.com/podcast for your 2 free gifts with purchase. pockethose.com/PODCAST.
Yay, Media Group. So if you think you've heard every healthy eating lesson, then think again. The New York Times just served up 10 fresh insights. Some you're going to love, some you're going to maybe give the side eye, and we're breaking them down today, rapid fire style, with my longtime partner in wellness, Melanie Warner Spencer. So expect science, a bit of silliness, and simple strategies that you can start right now. Healthy eating just got a whole lot more interesting, y'all. A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Welcome to this week's episode of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. I'm registered dietitian Molly Kimball. In every episode that we do of Fueled, we like to translate science into something that you actually can start doing. And today we're doing it lightning round style. There was a recent New York Times article. It's called 10 Nutrition Lessons from 2025 so far. It's packed with solid advice. There are a few eyebrow raisers, and it gives us plenty of fodder for future deep dive podcast episodes. I texted it to a ton of friends, family, and of course, my friend Melanie Warner Spencer, who's joining us today. She's basically our show's unofficial co-host at this point. If you don't know Melanie yet, here's the deal. She's a longtime health and lifestyle journalist among many other titles. She's also the executive editor of our Zero Proof cocktail book, Craft. Melanie has a gift for really digging into peer-reviewed research 1 minute and then flipping it and channeling just regular person curiosity and silliness. And this is exactly why I wanted her to join me for this episode. So we're keeping it fast, fun, and really practical. So here's what to expect. We're going to race through so we keep us on time, all 10 of these New York Times tips. We're going to be talking about things like dialing up the protein, what's the deal with ultra processed foods. She and I are going to give a quick love it, leave it, or edit it verdict for every one of these tips. We're going to share some of the strategies that we do for each of these that you can start now. And because it is about 10 of these topics and it's sort of like speed dating for nutrition, we'll talk also about which ones of these that I'll be covering with a deeper dive in future episodes. So settle in and let's jump in. This is Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, where evidence meets everyday life. All right, welcome, Melanie.
Hi, Molly.
I would say, how many times have we done this?
I've lost count.
I've
absolutely lost count.
We would have to go to Google.
Yeah.
To pull a summary of all the podcast episodes. So thank you for sharing your time, your fun, your expertise with us so many times.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on all the time.
When I reached out to you, you were like, I was just thinking, can we drum up something? Like, it's been a long time since we've gotten together or done anything together. And then here it is.
Here it is.
So 10 nutrition lessons. And I liked how the New York Times referred to it as so far, you know, and this really kind of came out mid-year. I liked it because I feel like a lot of these are talkers and they're things that people ask you and me about. It's things that we've talked about or we've written about, we've covered. And some of these, for each of these, I think the reason it's referred to as nutrition lessons so far is some science that's come out one way or another on each of these.
Right. And I think too, they did such a good job of digging in on things that not only were really trending now, but also some things that maybe we've grown up hearing and those things have been dispelled. So I love a good debunk. So this was fun to dig in on.
So we're going to start just 1 through 10, y'all. The first one is healthy aging just might start with your morning cup of coffee.
I loved so many things about this. The science that they offered, it really is, I think, a good equalizer and demonstration of how there can be a lot of confusing, conflicting information. I actually literally sent Molly an excerpt from one of the articles that said that 7 cups of coffee is really good for you. And I said I would take that to my grave.
She said, I'm latching on. I'm not letting go. And it's literally 7 cups of coffee in the women. And I believe the study was covering people over 70.
And they really dug in on nurses. The actual group that they looked at were nurses.
And so 7 cups of coffee associated with healthier aging, kind of put as a very general way to state it, but things like reduced risk of heart disease, diabetes, certain types of cancer. And so really what they were looking at in this is that drinking coffee through our entire life and including midlife may lead to that healthier aging. And the list goes on of all types. A few things I thought was interesting is that drinking tea or decaffeinated coffee was not associated with the healthy aging, maybe because people tend to consume less of it if it's decaf.
Mm-hmm. And maybe also, I think, especially with tea, I've noticed more people, I don't know, I guess probably equally doctor it up with sugar and cream and, it just depends.
A lot of tea also is herbal tea, which is not going to have the same benefits. If you're drinking hibiscus tea, it's going to have totally different benefits than what the actual tea leaf. It's not, we call it tea, but it's not true tea when it's herbal tea. The other was that soft drinks don't count. So if you're talking about getting
caffeine and soft drinks, yeah.
So soft drinks was actually associated with decreased odds of healthy aging. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about coffee, we're talking about caffeinated coffee. And while 7 cups a day was what was associated with healthy aging, most of what we see is that up to 300 to 400 milligrams of caffeine a day, which translates for most people to 3 to 4 cups a day, is fine in the general your nutrition organizations, your medical organizations sort of sign off on 300 to 400 milligrams a day, which is 3 to 4 cups of coffee.
And they're very adamant that is not if you're loading it with sugar and cream and all kinds of, flavors and essentially sugar.
So either have it black or have just a little bit of your milk of choice, plant-based milk of choice. I just use regular half and half, a little splash of that.
Which can help with acidity. So if you don't go overboard, that could be a good thing.
All right. Anything more on coffee?
I'm going to say I love it. I love it. I don't know. I need to wait for our speed round because I just love it.
There's a lot of guilt around coffee. People often say when they're talking nutrition in general, I know I need to change my coffee. There's just that's sort of an assumption people have. So I'm really happy that we're starting with this one.
Yes. And I don't feel that. I don't coffee guilt.
You had a little surprise on your face when I said that. Really?
It's done.
All right. Number 2, is there the concept here, or the question is there a less bad or least bad alcohol? Kind of the myth or the statement is vodka is not any healthier for you, or vodka soda is not healthier in quotes than beer or whiskey. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, there's a lot of drink clear liquor. Clear liquor is better. If you're quote dieting or watching your calories, do vodka instead of others. The reality on this is that hard liquor is hard liquor. The calories for hard liquor, ounce for ounce, are about the same. If you're looking at darker liquors like a whiskey, there's compounds in there that might worsen your hangover.
That was something that I feel like we all sort of joke around, no brown liquor or whatever. And it was interesting to see that was kind of true.
However, I mentioned that Melanie is executive editor of Craft, the Eat Fit Guide to Zero Proof Cocktails. Both Melanie and I have been alcohol-free for years now, and we've both really immersed ourselves into the data around alcohol. So you give just a quick summary here of the answer is there's no type of alcohol that's going to be better for you.
There's not. And even though, they included a link to an article that said, but you can lessen the effects, it's still at the very top. It said there's no amount of alcohol that's safe because it's linked to 7 different cancers. It's linked to all kinds of problems with your other organs. And it's just, I think, not really hedging bets. They're just saying it's not healthy. It's not good for you. And so you look at the different ways that you can kind of, still have your drink and eat it too, but it's at the end of the day, it's not healthy. And so it does say that beer out of everything has the lowest ABV. And so what you should be more concerned with, as opposed to what type of alcohol is better or worse, is the ABV. So the ethanol that's actually included in that liquor. So you might have a 4% or an 8% or higher. So you want to stick with the lower ABV. And there are a lot of new low ABV products out there. But
And Melanie's meaning alcohol by volume.
Yes,
ABV.
alcohol by volume, which is a percentage you'll see on the packaging.
And it's required. They have to say it.
Right.
So whether it's a beer, whether it's any of these, you're going to see what that percent ABV alcohol by volume is.
But you have to pay attention to units because all units are not created equally. So it starts to get
Serving
complicated.
size, really. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, no alcohol is healthy. So,
And reiterating what you said, 7+ types of cancer. And we're talking it's linked to cancer. It's linked to heart disease. We used to have the kind of the myth, and there's still a lot of people that perpetuate that myth that drinking a glass of wine or red wine is good for your heart. But we're seeing that the risk for heart disease, the risk for cancers far outweigh the benefits. Also, what I think is starting to be talked about a little bit more, but I still don't think enough, anxiety, mental health that's affected with consuming alcohol. So y'all don't turn it off right now after we're talking about this. But the answer of, vodka soda is not any healthier for you than beer or whiskey. All types of alcohol really carry a risk. And so what we would just say is, reevaluate that relationship with alcohol, reevaluate when is it worth it and when is it not. So we were with some friends just this week, and they're big wine drinkers. They love any celebration, any reason to open a bottle of wine. We went over there for dinner. It was a Tuesday night, and I noticed they didn't, because they're really kind of looking at, let's keep that more on the weekends.
Right.
Historically, even a Tuesday night, just because we were over there would have been a reason, let's open a bottle and then maybe a second. And so I think reevaluating the frequency and what you drink, and going back to that concept of beer, it is that much lower percentage of alcohol by volume. What's interesting to me too is a lot of people say, oh, but I feel so full when I drink beer. Well, for someone who's watching and mindful of what else they're eating, that can be a good thing,
right?
It can make you slow down in what you're having there. I've always said to people, what are you going to drink less of? And that might be your better for your go-to. And then like Melanie was saying, there's a lot of 0 proof spirits, but there's also a lot of low. Not only is there no alcohol versions of things, there's also low.
So no and low has kind of become the mantra of the sober curious community. Right. And I love it because it's a very non-shaming, and I'm absolutely on board with non-shaming way to be inclusive and to say, you can make this choice or this choice, and either one of them is going to be better than going for the foolproof, the really high octane stuff.
So point number 3 here, the social media conversation about protein may be misleading. I think we could fill in the blank of the social media conversation about anything, right? May be misleading. And protein is one. And, it's impossible to even keep up with what all the conversation is around protein on social media. But one of the things that this article is pointing out is that, people are debating whether or not the average person is getting enough protein, too much, not enough protein. What I see often is that, especially when someone starts to pay more attention to what they're eating, they're trying to kind of clean it up a little bit, they're putting a little more focus there, protein can often be one of the first things to go.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say that they realize that they needed more.
And I think it might be people when they're going into healthifying their approach, they start to maybe be more restrictive than what they need to be.
And that's what the article said, especially about younger girls and women, that's really the result of restriction.
Someone will say, I'll do a salad or a sandwich or a wrap, but then the amount of protein they're putting in there is just minuscule, And so I do find it can swing a lot, and people's perspective or perception of what they should consume in terms of protein varies a lot. When we look at the RDA is very low, and it's also complicated because it's in grams of protein per kilogram. And so really what it translates to is about less than half a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you have somebody that's 120 pounds, that would be less than 60 grams of protein. And that's really, really low. What
would that look like in terms of, say, 3 meals?
A standard size chicken breast is about 30 grams of protein.
Okay. So you get half with just 1 meal.
Right.
So that's not that hard.
Something like a carton of Fage Greek yogurt has 20 grams of protein.
I love hearing that.
Right.
I'm a big Fage fan.
Right. So, 3 to 4 ounces of meat, 4 ounces of lean protein is going to give you close to 30 grams of protein.
What about a vegetarian meal? Like, let's say you're having a good veggie bowl. What would give you your supplemental protein for that meal?
So beans are going to be one of your higher protein veggie ones in something like a veggie bowl. They do have about 3 times more carb than protein, but it's really high fiber carbs. But beans are still more carb than they are protein. But if someone's going to use tofu, if they're vegetarian, not vegan, and they're going to add cheese, those things would be in there. Eggs can be a good source of protein, 7 grams of protein in 1 egg. And so what I look at, typically my recommendation for protein is take your body weight, and half a gram of protein per body weight would be my bare minimum.
So per pound?
Per pound.
Yeah.
Half a gram per pound. What I really want to go with more is close to a gram of protein per pound. So again, using 120 pounds, I want someone to get about 120 grams of protein. Now, assuming every other circumstances are healthy.
Right. And now we talked earlier, because I was saying how as a menopausal woman, that it seems like the chatter is you need 3 times more protein than you're probably getting. And I feel like it becomes your full-time job to try to get enough protein. And then you also have to increase your fiber or make sure you're getting enough fiber. So it just really feels to me like it's a lot on top of everything else we're trying to do to stay healthy.
So I like when things can kind of pull double duty. So that Greek yogurt we talked about, or something like cottage cheese, we're also getting a hefty dose of calcium from these things. There's, milk has 8 grams of protein per cup, but also plant-based milks like Ripple is a pea protein milk, same grams of protein, 8, but also a lot less sugar than regular cow's milk. So there's and also again, that calcium, the vitamin D that's in there. So we can get, kind of pull double duty on some things. When we look at, why protein? As we age, we're naturally, unless we're doing something to prevent it specifically, we're going to lose muscle mass as we age. It's part of the natural process. The term is called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia. The things that we can do to combat it is strength training, but then also making sure we're getting enough protein. That protein also keeps us fuller longer. And when we're looking at how do we edge out other things that aren't so healthy in our diet and curb cravings, keep us feeling more satisfied with what we do eat, protein. If you eat something that's a processed refined carbohydrate, which that's going to be on our list as we'll talk. So I want to wrap us up because we're going a little too long on this bullet. But if we're reaching for things, you rarely hear someone say, I couldn't stop eating that grilled chicken or that shrimp.
Right.
There's only so much you get full. Right. And so those are some of the reasons. There's more, but our focus, our alertness, maintaining or ideally growing that muscle mass, those are just some of the few reasons of increasing that protein. Now, does everyone need to increase it? We're not saying that, but the RDA is too low. And using that rule of thumb, about a gram of protein per pound of body weight, a little plus or minus.
That'll get you there.
Just getting close to it. Number 4, this one's about the potty. It's okay if you don't go every day.
Which was news to me until probably the past 5 or so years. not to go TMI, but when I was younger, like a little girl, my dad would feed me prune juice every night, because he thought, I was not going enough. And, bless my dad for caring, but it was disgusting. And then, years and years as an adult, I asked my doctor about it and he was like, well, what's normal for you? And I told him and he was like, then that's normal. You're fine. And it was a revelation.
Thank you. And how much prune juice was it?
It was just a little nugget glass, like a juice glass.
But still.
But, for my, little unsophisticated child palate, it was disgusting.
Do you eat prunes or drink prune juice now as an adult? I wouldn't think so.
Actually would rather not.
So I think the takeaway here is it's okay if you don't go every day. The biggest thing is there a change in your regular habits? Mm-hmm. And there's way more here that we can talk about, but we've got so many others in our 10 that we'll stop there. But knowing that you don't have to go every day, but if there is something that's a change either way, that's when to flag it, bring it to your provider. Mm-hmm. Number 5. It's about hot lemon water. So hot lemon water, yes, it does have some health benefits, but it's not working any magic.
It isn't. And that being said, one of the many hats that I wear is as an Ayurvedic nutrition counselor. And the Ayurvedic take on hot lemon water is that it's hydrating. It can help you with your daily bathroom
because of the warm liquid.
Because of the warm liquid, it can help dilate the blood vessels, making them kind of open up. So that helps you out. And it's obviously maybe too going to give you a little hit of vitamin C. It's probably not significant, but and the article kind of concurred with that too. A lot of the other claims, they just don't really hold water.
Or hot or water, lemon water. Lemon. You'll hear people that are like, "Oh, it's fat burning." Mm-hmm. We'll get that about hot lemon water that people are drinking it in the morning to burn fat. Not going to happen. The vitamin C, it's a little minuscule bit of it, but not a reason to do it. I think more than anything is kind of the soothing nature of it, the ritualistic, the warmth of that water. Mm-hmm. And it can, again, kind of get things going. What I do in the morning is a little bit of warm lemon water, and I do a whole concoction with it. I put some fresh pressed ginger juice in it. And what I do with that is it's ginger juice that I freeze into little 1 ounce cubes. And so I put it in there and it dissolves in that hot water. Then I put a little bit of apple cider vinegar, which is also alkalizing, helping to buffer that acidity.
And has some gut health benefits. Because it's fermenty.
And then the last thing I put in is a little tea that has a little bit of a cinnamon and a cayenne. So it is a whole.
That's something.
Yeah, it's taking that lemon water to a next level.
It is like super water.
Yeah, it's super water. And I love it. And even when I travel, I'll do portable versions of that, or I'll try to plan to have maybe not all components of it, depending on where we're traveling or for how long, but as much as I can get in of those things. And there's the ritualistic, the feel of it, kind of the starting your day. It also, all of that in there, that wakes you up before you're even having your coffee, And
ginger is also a good digestive.
Right.
So it kind of helps with your digestion as well.
So all of those elements. There's also powdered ginger that if you're not doing ginger juice, you can do that and put just a little teaspoon of that and kind of whisk it in. So hot lemon water, if you want to do it. There's certainly not anything harmful and it could be helpful. And you can add some of those other things and kind of up your game. And
if it's comforting and it gets you to actually drink water first thing in the morning, that's great, because again, you've been laying there for hopefully 8-ish hours and you're dehydrated. So it kicks off your day.
If there's other things you're looking to add in, like creatine or some of these other products that we've talked about over the years on this podcast, that can also be a time to add it in. Number 6, you don't need to eat meat to get enough protein. I think we can hit on this one briefly because we kind of talked about it a minute ago, but this was of our 10 lessons so far this year in 2025, 2 were about protein. Mm-hmm. So one is about amount and do we get enough protein? Number 2 is about sources of it. And I think we kind of talked about that you don't need to eat meat. There's a lot of non-meat options.
Well, and I I think too, because so many people are trying to cut back on their meat consumption for a variety of reasons, whether it's environmental or health, maybe just cutting back on red meat, maybe trying to do a plant-based meal on Mondays, meatless Mondays, whatever it is, it's comforting to know that you don't have to get all of your protein from meat. I know there are, however, some vitamins and minerals that meat kind of takes care of that if you are a meat eater. But you can also get those things from other places. So it's just, not just for vegetarians and vegans, it's good to know that we can still get the protein that we need.
And on the topic of protein, I mentioned that there's several of these that we'll be covering in more detail. Kerrigan, who I do the WGNO segments with, she's going to join me.
I'm smiling because she's hilarious.
She's hilarious. And she's done figure.
I was just thinking about your segment with her with the spoon, and she kept dropping, or she dropped it. She was licking,
balancing it on her nose.
Yeah.
She is hilarious, and she's done figure competitions, and she's really worked in different ways of like fine-tuning her protein intake and looking at it from almost like a perspective of really shifting body composition and looking at it in a very kind of a sciencey way. And I thought she'd be a fun one to do a protein segment on.
And they did say in one of the articles that for bodybuilders, they did a study of people who really increased their protein and those who wasn't that what it was? Those who didn't. And they didn't see a big difference at all between the two. And that's why they were saying you don't necessarily have to get it all from meat or whatever. But that they did notice that there, if you're really into bodybuilding, that sometimes it can increase your muscle mass. So it just, for the normal average person, it's probably not going to make that big of a difference
to bump it way up.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're looking for more on protein, and beyond that, we'll be talking about the different types, plant-based, whey-based, also beef or animal-based, how much do we need, all the kind of ins and outs on protein. I'd actually seen a very brief TV segment. It was on the Today Show, and the person who was breaking down all the different types of proteins and kind of a Q&A on it, it upset me because I felt like it complicated it even more. If I was the viewer, I felt like I had even more questions, and that sort of inspired me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go through point by point and really try to break it down. So Kerrigan and I look for that in the coming months. We'll have one that's a deep dive on protein. And back to our New York Times list, number 7, healthy breakfast cereals do exist.
I want to know more.
Oh gosh, this is the hardest one. The second part of that statement is you have to know what to look for. It's hard.
It is hard. And I was telling Molly that I essentially just grab regular whole grain Cheerios, and then I'll doctor them up with like chia or nuts or seeds or fruit, whatever, just to kind of, make them a little more super Cheerios. But that's kind of the only one that I know for sure doesn't have a lot of sugar, and it has, a good amount of protein and so on and so forth. So I think you were going to give me some other ones that I could, because I really like cereal, and I know that's a lot of people, millennials killed cereal, and
I haven't seen or read that way.
That was probably 10 years ago. Apparently the millennials love to kill things, and one of the things they killed was cereal, and I was bummed about it.
Kill it?
Like they just don't eat it because I don't know why. I don't know. I can't remember, but
but they killed it.
But they killed it. And I was angry. It was the only thing I was like, why did you have to kill the thing I like?
I'm okay with them killing it because I don't like most cereals. Most cereals are carb, and even if they're fiber-rich carbs, they're still just carbs. And what a lot of times someone will do is they put their fruit with it. Back in the day, they may also have a couple of slices of toast, whole grain toast, and then what if they have juice with it? Then in my brain, I'm like carb,
sugar bomb,
carb, sugar bomb. And so almost all cereals in the grocery section, if you're at a health food type aisle or any of these, they're still mostly carbs.
Right.
So at best, you're going to get fiber with it. So looking for at least 5 grams of fiber, trying to keep your sugar under 3 grams of sugar. But still, most of them don't have a lot of protein. And so one of the things that I like to do is if you just find a blanket good whole grain cereal, I love adding the things like the chia seeds and things like that to boost it. And nuts, especially if it's like a little bit of ground nuts to make it like a little bit smaller, like in your cereal. There's the brand Nutrails, NU Trails. They have a granola that is grain free. And so instead of it being oats that kind of gives you that texture, it's actually like little clusters that have some coconut in it. And even if someone doesn't like coconut, my husband Brad doesn't love coconut flakes and things, but he loves this granola. And so it's seeds, it's nuts, it's things that are a grain-free granola, which means it has more fats and proteins and still a bit of fiber in it.
But not all the carbs.
So looking for a product like that, if you're going in that granola space, Nutrails is like my favorite. On the kind of kid type cereal, there's a brand called Magic Spoon that I would just say, look for it. It is pricey. Costco's had it for a while. It's the O's, it's colorful, but it's not with the synthetic food dyes.
Okay.
And the protein, I want to say it's 14 grams of protein in a serving. And still
I think
the fiber.
my whole grain Cheerios has 5 or 6.
At best.
Yeah, 5
probably
or 6.
at best. So if you find a cereal, if you like something like the Magic Spoon and it's got your protein, you're good. I love like the Nutrails or one of these granolas. It's like a grain-free granola that's going to give you that more proteins and fats and not the sugar. But your milk can really make a big difference here, or what you put it with. So if you put it with a Greek yogurt, then you're naturally going to be getting that dose of protein from the Greek yogurt. If you put it with regular cow's milk, you're getting 12 grams of sugar for every 8 grams of protein in that cow's milk. Okay. I mentioned earlier Ripple, that pea protein. I like that one a lot because it's, I want to say it's even 0 sugar and for your 8 grams of protein. And so that looking to see what, if you're going to have a cereal, a high fiber cereal, trying to at least pair it also with a protein.
I will so I love fortified unsweetened coconut milk. I'm not a lover of cow's milk. And that plus maybe sometimes a dollop of yogurt is what I'll do to doctor up my cereal, because that way I'm still getting some fermenty food and it just kind of ups the ante a little.
The other thing that I'll get people to try, and this is one of those love it or hate it's, is if you have a protein powder that you like the way it tastes, especially if it's vanilla, stir that into your milk first, make it like a little slurry, and then put that as your milk over your cereal. I have had some people tell me they really like doing it with chocolate protein powders that they like because it's like a Cocoa Krispies type of a thing.
I never would have thought of that. Yeah.
You dissolve it first.
This
in the
rule
milk.
breakers.
Whisk it first, otherwise you're going to have clumpy powdery over your cereal. So whisk it first in your milk separately. Whisk it, dissolve it, pour that over your cereal, and tell me if you like it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try that. That's a good hack.
It has to be a protein powder that you don't mind the way it tastes, and hopefully you actually like it.
Right.
You know,
there's one at Trader Joe's that I dig on. So yeah, I could see doing that.
Yeah.
With
So
it.
if you've got that, you know, you like it in smoothies or whatever, try that. Whisk it into a little bit of your milk, make a little slurry, pour that over. If you try it, for Melanie, also for our listeners, tell me. And if you try the chocolate,
I will. Okay. Yeah. I'll report back.
Number 8, this is about eggs. So eggs are nutritious. This is one that is it still a holdover, do you think, that people think eggs are bad for us?
So that was something that was beaten into us when I was probably in high school. Eggs beaten. Haha.
With egg beaters.
Egg beaters.
Solution.
Like my grandmother had high cholesterol, and so she went off eggs and used the fake eggs for a long time. It was disgusting. Sorry if you're a proponent of those, but they weren't tasty. And so for a long, long time, we were told not too many eggs, or if you have high cholesterol. But then we learned that it's not the same kind of cholesterol, so it was fine to eat the eggs. And I think everybody got the memo.
I hope so, but having it in this list makes me wonder.
Maybe they didn't.
So here's your memo.
Yes, now you have gotten the memo.
Here's your memo. Eggs are fine. Eggs are nutritious. What Melanie was talking about when she was like, you know, the cholesterol, and it's a different type of cholesterol. It is confusing because the idea is eggs are high in cholesterol and that's going to raise our cholesterol. That first part is true. Eggs are high in cholesterol. They Also, it's true that the cholesterol that's in foods does not raise our blood levels of cholesterol. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes. And when we look at what might raise it to some degree is the saturated fat, although even that is up for debate in some ways. But the saturated fat in eggs is really, really low. And so the takeaway is that for most people, eggs, including the yolk, are fine. Eggs, also the yolk, is a really good source of choline, which is essential for our body's fat metabolism. They're also a good source of lutein and zeaxanthin, which are essential for eye health. So when you look at like what's in eye supplements, that people take for eye health, lutein, zeaxanthin, which is also found in those egg yolks. So if someone, and it's all about habit. I mean, people, if they've been doing those egg beaters, they don't want to let go of it.
Right.
I
mean,
and so crack a whole,
their own.
Crack a whole egg though, add it to it. So you at least get one yolk that you're putting in with that. Hold on. All right. Anything else on eggs?
Well, I love eggs because they are the original portable snack or portable food. And so I will boil some at the beginning of the week or, in the morning and take them with me cracked and ready to go. It's just such an easy way to get A, your protein, and B, a really simple snack if you know you're going to have a day where you're kind of running all over the place.
I love that you plan that.
I do.
For the person who says, boiling an egg, which does not seem like it's a lot, it's cumbersome, but it must be because, boy, all these places now sell boiled eggs already peeled.
Well, and that is super handy, but I will tell you, they have that.
The texture's different.
They have a different texture and they have a pretty gross sulfurous smell when you open the packaging. So if you are doing that, I wouldn't open it around other people unless they're a good friend.
That's not your airplane snack.
No, I wouldn't do it.
And going back to the protein conversation we had earlier, a large egg is about 6 or 7 grams of protein that you're going to get there. So not feeling bad. And like we said, here's your memo. If you've been avoiding egg yolks, add at least one in, and a lot of people don't have eggs every single day. And so if you're doing it a couple times a week and you have 2 eggs, even 3, and you're doing it, weekends or a few times. But if you are doing your egg beaters, consider just cracking that one egg and adding it to it. Number 9, your diet can play a big part in how well you sleep.
And not just related to caffeine.
Right. I wondered if this is something that people put 2 and 2 together a lot, of how what they're eating is affecting their sleep levels.
Probably not. I mean, I think other than the obvious things like caffeine and sugar, I definitely, I don't know, maybe because of my Ayurvedic background, I do think about that because I know that certain foods beyond turkey have things in them that kind of help you sleep. So I do think there are some foods that people link to better sleep, but probably not as many as there might be.
And there's some that sort of have this like magical, mythical, quality around them.
The tart cherry juice,
kiwis.
Really? I didn't know kiwis. See,
Kiwis is one. Things like warm milk,
I did know the milk because in Ayurveda, a lot of people have probably heard of turmeric milk.
Right.
But there are so many milk drinks that are these magical sleepy milks that Ayurveda, the recipes are just there's so many.
And so turmeric milk or golden milk, as it would be called. There's different teas, herbal teas, chamomiles, but others that are sort of relaxing and calming teas. What I would also say is there's things that we can add in specifically, like these things that we just kind of talked through, that might help to bring us a little bit better sleep. I think that there's also a lot that goes into the pattern and what that ritual that we're having ourselves do at night, that is those cues that are telling our brain it's time to wind down. So that we start to have those associations that when we do have that tea or we do have that warm turmeric milk or golden milk, that it's part of that step by step that our body's getting ready to go to bed.
It's a cue. especially if you have established good sleep hygiene, which again, another
I love that phrase,
trendy
sleep
term, but I do
hygiene.
love it. Exactly. Because I think it adds the appropriate amount of importance to making sure that that's something you do, just like brushing your teeth.
Right.
You know, it's part of that nightly routine that helps you wind down. And I think every study has shown that no matter what the habit is, you're more likely to, accomplish whatever your goal is, whether it's sleep or exercise, if you give your body and your mind these little cues that indicate, okay, now we're shifting to this. So it's like, if you're wanting to exercise in the morning, put your tennis shoes by the bed with your workout outfit, and the first thing you see is that. Well, same thing at night. If you start lowering the lights, you put your phone to bed, you pull out a book, you drink a warm beverage that it doesn't have caffeine in it, these things are going to say to your body, start to just gear down, get ready for sleep.
The other is to be as mindful about what you're not doing as what you are doing. All right. So the other thing is to be as mindful about what you're not putting in your body. So there's things that we can be proactive and try to include, this herbal tea or these other things that are going to be part of that ritual for sleep. Also, having that big meal is going to interfere with sleep. Having something very spicy, our body is still working so hard to digest this as we sleep. So I think and we know alcohol, we talked about alcohol earlier, but alcohol is one of the biggest contributors to disrupting our sleep cycle. So being aware of all of those things. And then of course, dark room, cool space, ideally 100% put your technology away before you're going to bed.
I try to give myself about 2 hours, if not more. And I actually interviewed a sleep researcher at Oxner about 2 years ago on this very subject. And that was one of his major points, was to gear down on your technology. And even if you're using blue light glasses, and be mindful that even your TV puts out blue light. So it's not just your phone or just your iPad or whatever.
And I've charged my phone in another room. So you actually have to release it before you're getting into bed. Don't keep it by your nightstand. And then you can look at a real book with real pages as you're tuning in and dialing back for sleep. So diet, number 9, can play a big role in how well you sleep. I think that goes both ways, and things we can add in, but also what to be mindful of to pull back. But it's no replacer for the other behaviors. Finally, number 10, we are learning more about ultra processed foods. So this was sort of the nutrition lesson, was simply we're learning more.
Right.
But there's a lot about this. A lot. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think defining processed foods to begin with is probably a good starting point. And, it really depends. I think your literacy about processed food depends on how you grew up, what you grew up eating. I was a child in the 70s and 80s, and the 70s is when all of that processed food started making it into our homes, because the moms were like, heck yeah, I want to make it easier on myself. And so we ate TV dinners. And then in the 80s, we were eating, Tostino's pizza rolls, and no one thought twice about it. We had chicken patties from, was it Swanson chicken patties or whatever, Tyson chicken patties, at least once a week, and Hamburger Helper. Like, that was what I grew up eating. It wasn't until I was an adult that I started learning I probably don't want to eat that kind of stuff all the time or at all.
And you're right. There's processed foods, and we talked earlier about oats and stuff like that, and cereal, whole grain cereal. Those foods are still processed. They are not as they appear in nature.
And lunch meat.
But the ultra processed foods kind of takes it to another level. And so typically ultra processed foods are what we think of as things like chips, a lot of fast food, things like a donut, soft drinks. These things would all be under that category of ultra processed foods, typically high in white refined carbohydrates, sugars, added sugars, salt. And they've really become a talker lately. I think nutritionally, they've been a talker for us for a lot of years. We see the connection between ultra processed foods and you name it: cancer, obesity, heart disease, anxiety. It's crazy to me that we're throwing all these other potential Band-Aids at mental health And then at the same time, it's donut day, it's cake day.
Mm-hmm.
And we wonder, why do we have, and it's in the very same organization. When, we're really trying to make it a focus, yet we're undoing what could potentially help people move forward with things. And so there's all of these consequences linked to ultra processed foods that, as dietitians, we've kind of been shouting about it for a long time. And now it's also entering the political arena.
Right.
And,
on the one hand, I'm really glad to see that becoming part of the conversation, across the United States. But at the same time, I think in some ways we're focusing on the wrong things. For example, recently there was discussion about putting cane sugar in Coke instead of corn syrup. And of course, we've had Mexican Coke for a long time, which has the cane sugar. It's still sugar. And so even if you're putting cane sugar in it instead of high fructose corn syrup, you still probably shouldn't be drinking, a Coke or multiple Cokes every single day.
When I heard the news stories about that, there was nothing that was indicating that this is still just sugar.
Right.
If anything, as a listener who doesn't know better, it would seem as if it's a better option. Well, this doesn't have high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
It's still just sugar.
It's still sugar.
And then going down this political pathway, I was reading the backlash from the corn farmers. I'm like, all right, corn farmers, there's already one of the things that we talk about when we look at what as a country we can do to make it possible to have healthier foods that's more affordable. When we look at corn and its byproducts and corn oil and what corn is used in, well, it's also subsidized by the government. When we look at corn and soy, then those things are cheap.
I want them to, subsidize avocados.
Avocados, 100%. This is what we were like. And so, I would say that, it's easy to be callous and say, we don't care about that. But I'm sure if I was close with a person who farmed corn, I would care about them as an individual. But could we shift the focus of these farmers to where there are other crops that are there, and we aren't having such a heavy prevalence of foods like corn and soy when we could do things that are going to help us make healthy foods more affordable, and it's a whole cycle there.
Well, and I did grow up on a farm, and one of the things that you learn, especially as a small farmer, is that you need a diversity of crops. It's better for the health of your soil to have a diversity of crops. And if you have a long range plan where you're over time making sure that the farmers who are benefiting from these subsidies of corn growing, they can start to plan ahead and maybe start to diversify their crops.
Almost like
bit.
A transition plan.
Yeah.
A few things that I'm going to link to. We did do a whole podcast about seed oils with a person who's an MD and also has a PhD in nutrition science. And so we break down seed oils, which brought up some of this conversation about soy and corn and the subsidy there. We did do a full podcast with a toxicologist from the Center of Science for the Public Interest. They produced the Nutrition Action magazine, which I love. And we had a whole conversation about kind of the behind the synthetic food dyes. And then Melanie and I have done a lot of podcasts on alcohol, the science of alcohol in our mind and body. So I'll link to all of those. And we've done some too on plant proteins. So I'll link to some of those episodes that'll give you a little bit of a deeper dive here. The finishing up kind of the conversation on ultra processed foods, we said that, dietitians, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been talking about it for a long time for certain reasons, and those reasons have only grown. The more that science has come out, we've realized, wow, we were trying to minimize intake of ultra processed foods for all of these reasons, and now we have even more and more and more.
Well, and one of the things that I found very interesting, and I want to say it was in one of the Michael Pollan documentaries, but I could be wrong, but it talked at length about how ultra processed foods are made to be addictive / they are addictive. And the reason that it's, I don't know, you can say it's sort of Machiavellian, but they have people who spend their entire careers coming up with ways to make this a more sensory experience. So for example, when you're eating a Dorito, It has been engineered to make your mind and body just catch fire with desire to have more. It's the crunch, it's that balance of savory and salty and even a little sweet. It has so many things going on in terms of the mouthfeel that they have studied and tweaked and changed and perfected. And it boils down to even how you're experiencing the opening of the package. So Pringles, oh, let me tell you, it's an actual sensory experience to open a can of Pringles, and they know it because they've engineered it that way. And on the one hand, I was watching this thinking, holy cow, they are geniuses. But I was also going, oh my God.
I've fallen for it.
Yeah, like absolutely, hook, line, and sinker. And it's really hard to get yourself off of that ultra processed hamster wheel. Once you're on it, you really have to make a concerted effort because you have a lot stacked against you. These experts have made sure.
As I was going through the podcast that we'd done and I was looking back at my notes, I was like, there was one more thing I was going to say. And it was exactly that. On ultra processed foods, we had an interview with Dr. Ashley Gerhardt. She does so much of the research looking into exactly what Melanie just said. And if you heard Melanie, her explanation, you may say, well, that does seem kind of like a conspiracy theory. Really? Are there really people back there like working over their kettles and like, scheming to make us crave these things? 100%. The food industry is filled with people who this is what they do. And they're literally finding the, that sweet spot that is, lighting up receptors in our brain, just like when we have addictive drugs. And the question becomes, are these foods addictive? And in some cases, the answer is yes. And it's in some cases, depending on the food, the quantity, and also the person and how that person is wired. And that's one of the things that Dr. Gerhardt really studies is, what is this combination of carb, salt, fat that is in these products that is kind of this specific formulation? And one of the examples I use a lot is Cheez-Its. You use Pringles, but Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its, yes.
People are like, they're like crack, and it's not by chance because they have just that right balance of savory with that little bit of saltiness, kind of a little buttery, a little bit of a sweet to it. That is by design to make us want more of those foods. And when we do have those foods, it does trigger us to want more. When we put ourselves on the cycle of that, that's again where we look at not only are those foods edging out all these other things we talked about, your protein and all the other things that we would want to put more in, they're edging that out. They're triggering us to be more and more hungry to want more of these. We would say they could be contributing to the obesity issues, all of that. And then the mental aspect of what it's doing to our psyche when we're consuming all of those foods.
Right.
And so I think it can't be overstated in how much I would say ultra processed foods. And I think right in line with that, alcohol.
Right.
That we're just the things that we think, I know they're not really good for me, but we don't really think through just how they're having these cyclical effects and long-term effects on our body.
Well, and one of the articles for the alcohol related tip, it was saying how it changes your DNA. And anything to me that says it changes your DNA, it messes with your brain health, those things are very alarming to me. And I'm, don't mean to fearmonger, but I'm a journalist and I'm a creative, and my brain health is really important to me to be able to do the things that I want to do and do them well. And so, when I started learning more and more about how sugar affects my brain health and how alcohol affects my brain health and how the sugar in alcohol affects my brain health, those were things that made me sit up and take notice. And so for me, it was like alcohol really, making that one change, it was a catalyst to a lot of other changes that I began to make, and that became easier because I guess I sort of worked that muscle and didn't have the alcohol inhibiting me, making these other, uninhibiting me and having me make these other decisions. But it's like this dopamine rush that gets into your system when you drink that is not otherwise found in nature. So the dopamine that you get from that you're not going to get that from hugging your child. You're not going to get that level from playing with your pet or from doing any of the things that you love, because it's just not, your brain's not capable of it. And then sugar, same thing.
Those ultra processed foods create responses in our body that foods that you find in nature don't as well. And I think what you said is a really good thing, that kind of to go back and sum all of this up. It's hearing these and it's seeing, where can I start?
Right.
Because the key is to start with one. And I'm going to do, before we wrap up, we'll do our 10 countdown backwards. And it's thinking, which of these are you willing to press go on right now? I actually had a conversation with somebody just last night, and he said, yeah, I really want to go meet with one of your dietitians, at the fitness center with our lifestyle nutrition team. And he said, but first I want to get my sleep in check and I want to start exercising. I said, don't put that barrier. Just start. Just come in, because she can also
baby steps
work with you through these things. And the changes that she might work with you on are going to make it easy to do those others.
Especially sleep
So much. So when we think and we try to kind of maybe negotiate with ourselves and let me do this first, or let me get these things in place first, just pick one and get started, like today. So we're going to do a quick recap of these 10 lessons, and we'll kind of weigh in. If we say we would love it, we would leave it, or we'd edit it. Number 1, healthy aging can start with morning coffee.
Love it.
Love it. Number 2, is there a least bad alcohol, or the actual lesson is that vodka soda is not healthier than beer or whiskey? I think we love this.
I love it. Obviously, there were some edits, but I do love thinking about it and making choices based on it.
The edit would be, really, there's no alcohol. That's going to be the better option. Number 3, social media conversation around protein may be misleading. This is hard to say if we love it or leave it.
I say edit it.
Edit. I think many of us get enough protein, many of us don't. And the RDA is too low, and going with that rule of thumb that we talked about for how much. Number 4, it's okay if you don't go every day.
Love it.
Love it. Number 5, hot lemon water's got some benefits. Not magical, but it's fine if you do it.
Yeah. I mean, love it.
Yeah. Not a lot to talk about there.
If it helps you hydrate, do it.
Number 6, you don't need to eat meat to get enough protein.
Love it.
Number 7, healthy cereals do exist. Just know what to look for and make sure you're balancing it out with that protein.
Don't love it, but I love cereal, but okay. I do trick mine out, so it's good.
Number 8, eggs are fine. Eggs are nutritious.
Love it.
Love it. And love that it's a little public service announcement here if we've missed that memo. And then number 9, diet affects how we sleep.
Love it.
Love it. And there's a lot to talk through there, but love it. Sleep is actually one that I have a sleep researcher who I've interviewed a couple of times on here, and I'm asking her to join me again to talk about especially supplements and things that people have questions about. Number 10, ultra processed foods. The memo here being, we're learning more about it. I think we could say ultra processed foods, we're learning more of everything they're linked to, all these detrimental effects. Saying we love it sounds weird because
I love the notion of people learning more about ultra processed foods and picking whole foods whenever possible.
So this list, we pretty much loved most of it. There's a few we would edit. And yeah, thanks for spending the time and going through this with me.
Thank you, Molly. And I learned some things as always, which is, name of the game.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always so much fun having Melanie with us. And I really think this is maybe the 7th, possibly the 6th, 7th, or 8th episode that Melanie has done with us. So really grateful for her carving out time to share her expertise, her experience, her insight, her humor with us. So a tremendous thank you for that. And as we mentioned, we'll include the links that we talked about in the show notes of this episode. And always let me know what you think. If there's other sort of lessons that you're hearing about, or sort of some talking points that you're reading about, send them my way. We can dive deeper into these. I always want to hear about it. I'm always learning from y'all. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. And if you'd like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next time for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.